Polyamory, courage to embrace what God has joined together. Welcome to the Priceless Podcast.
I have two names. So my official name is female. It's Olga Gerasimenko. I counsel quite some people in polyamorous relationships and polyamorous parents. And my name that a lot of my friends and significant others use is Lyoshka, which is a male name from my childhood. A big part of my knowledge comes from my personal life experience and from the involvement in the community.
My name is Frans. My full name is Frans Blokhuis. I'm from Amsterdam, from the Netherlands. I'm 28 years old. I work in retail and I graduated from a master's in gender studies. Yeah, and I don't have a professional background in polyamory like Lyoshka, but I do practice it, so I guess that's why I'm here. I came out as gay 7 years ago, and throughout those years, I've started to identify more as queer. I don't really strongly identify as a man, but I don't mind being seen as one. I use he, him pronouns, but I'm also okay with other pronouns.
I'm gender fluid, very much. I use male pronouns. I believe my looks are pretty feminine, and I have two names, male and female. So it's about me being myself, about me being comfortable rather than tending to some specific gender. I have been in my life pan-romantic and pansexual. I have loved, and I do love in my life people of multiple genders, admire their very different gender identities. For more than a decade, I identify as a polyamorous person. I have multiple mutually loving relationships with people which are very differently framed. I just heard God when I was 12. And then I wanted very much to get baptized. And I got baptized in the Orthodox Church a year later. And I still stay committed very much to my Orthodox background. And I have at least 3 more strong commitments to the Leipzig, Halle and World Faith community, to the Russian-speaking community we are right here, and to the Forum, Eastern European and Western European Forum communities.
I was brought up in a Dutch Reformed setting, where my father is actually a pastor. Throughout my entire childhood, while I was going to the church every Sunday twice, up until I would say my 20th, somewhere around that age. And yeah, right now I do feel connected to the Christian tradition a lot, but not in the same way that I was brought up. So I don't really go to church anymore. I don't really pray to God, but I also wouldn't say that I don't believe in God. I find a lot of peace in not having all the answers.
What is distinctive about polyamory is like having it in the open, and it's not just coming, from this feeling of love between you and somebody else, but maybe it's also feeling of care for the relationships that this person is already having, that you are already having. It has respect, and it has like this shared life and shared love with those other ecosystem beauties and miracles.
For the listeners who are completely new to this, I can give like a short definition, which would be something like the practice of multiple romantic and possibly sexual relationships at the same time, so simultaneously. The key difference to what we would call cheating maybe, or which is open communication and consensual partnership, and everyone who is involved is aware of the situation that they are in, and this can manifest itself in a lot of different ways. If I were to draw my situation, it would be something like a V, where it's me in the middle, and then my two partners are the two dots that connect. And then there's a V. My partners also have people in their lives, and I have other people in my life that I feel strongly connected to. And that can also change in the future. I don't know what my next letter will be. Maybe it can also transform into an M or a W, where there's other people also involved. Some relationships can be sexual, some can not be sexual, some can be more about emotional connection, some can be more about just living together. What polyamory has taught me is to sort of embrace like the gray area that exists between friendship and romantic relationship. And I no longer really feel the need to categorize all the connections that I have in my life. Yeah, friendships are super important, and they are not above or beneath relationships. And I think the longer I think about what is the definition of a relationship, the more I struggle with finding an answer to that question.
I remember the metaphor that a friend has shared with me when we were talking about polyamory years ago. They were asked, as an asexual person, do you even have a relationship? Something like that. And they answered, thousands of them. And that is so much a metaphor close to my heart as well. I think that some relationships based on interests are like, they are there, but they don't have to be there. But some relationships, they need to be there. They have to be there. They are dear to us. And that's maybe kind of this relationship measure somehow in my life.
Yeah, for me, I never really find myself in situations where I feel like I don't have, where I feel like I need, for example, more hours in a day or more days in a week. I think there's a lot more possible than a lot of people like to think. So as long as we communicate openly, and as long as we are open-minded and flexible with our agendas, a lot of things can be arranged. Of course, there are moments where there are clashes of interest. For example, I don't know, if two people want to go with you on a holiday in the summer, but your budget only allows you to go on one trip, for example. But even then, there are ways to work around it. You can maybe figure out if it's a possibility to go with the three of you together, or you can maybe do 2 cheaper holidays, or that you can be creative with all these things. And I think there's a lot more possible than we tend to think.
In an internet meme where a monogamous person, well, like this general monogamous person is saying, but I want your undivided attention. And a polyamorous person is looking them in the eyes saying, you couldn't handle my undivided attention. You can do a lot of wonderful, wonderful different things in all the different constellations, or sometimes very separately. So I feel like when it's like this ecosystem, then it adjusts to the needs of the creatures that are in it.
Before we continue, we'll take a short break. We'll be back in 30-ish seconds, so stay with us.
I'm thinking about different ways how to engage more people in supporting this podcast. And some people said, be more aggressive.
Hey you! Support this podcast or I will...
Well, I tried, but it didn't work that well. So if you want to become a supporter of this podcast, please click one of the links in the podcast description.
When it comes to spending time together, I live together with one of my partners, but I only spend a few days a week with my other partner, or sometimes we only see each other once in 2 weeks, for example. Yeah, it's really a matter, again, of communicating what you need and how often you want to see each other.
We can often postpone if there is something that needs to be spoken of, but it needs to be kind of some transparent postponing so that people are not put on hold. But I feel you need, I know you need. I don't have any capacity for it right now, or I don't have the capacity for it right now.
Maybe there's a struggle with having all these relationships at the same time when we talk about time management and stuff like that. energy and things like that. But at the same time, I think there's also the answer there. Because, for example, when I need a shoulder to cry on, or when I need a partner to listen to my sorrows, there's always someone that I can go to, you know?
It took me quite some years or even maybe decades to get there, because this concept of polyamory was not there in the culture anywhere. And if it would have been, I believe I would have known maybe already at the age of 16. I was used to all those light crushes I used to have. I have like light crushes all the time. I think I'm pretty much wired into plenty of romantic relationships or plenty of romantic attractions. And then at some point I met a person with whom it was not looking like a crush. It was a feeling, this ground is sacred. And I was happy, and I was so full and so deep in this relationship. It was something I breathed, and something that influenced my life so much. When we were a decade into this relationship, I had this feeling again with another person who was very tangibly present in my life. And it was different. I did not compare them. All the culture says to you something has to be wrong with one of your relationships, or with your primary relationship, if something like this happens. Or if it's not, then you have to cast it aside. And when I tried to do that, I felt I will be casting aside a very alive part of myself, something that my conscience does not see as sin. I chose to share this mess with them, to talk to them about it. And I was absolutely not knowing what those talks will be. I just wanted to share the truth about what is going on, to share the confusion. And all of a sudden, the person I have loved for over a decade just so easily embraced me in it. This talk was not a solution, nothing like that. It was, just being embraced, being understood, being felt in what was there for me. It was also very scary because when you don't have any positive examples, anything in the culture, you don't know how to call it, you don't know how to be around it. And then you think okay, maybe if I'm too close, then I'm hindering the other person's possibility to find somebody who would be totally their own and things like that. When I talk about it, I say that I have a life partnership that is very important for me. And I have several mutually loving relationships that are framed very differently, from romantic relationships to friendships. To love people, I don't need them to be polyamorous if they kind of consent to me loving them, and to me feeling romantic about them, and to me feeling very respectful to the choices they make in their life. It's really all the variety, all the rainbow of possible relationships in my life, and I enjoy it.
For me, polyamory was something I was not familiar with at all. And Matthijs always stated from the start on that he was not sure if he wanted to be monogamous. And then Manoy came into my life, and Manoy and Matthijs already knew each other a bit through the same dating app that I had met Matthijs on. And Manoy was already very much into polyamory, and they sort of fell in love with me and Matthijs, and with us as a couple. And then, for me, that was really confusing and scary. I was kind of like, what is happening? Are you trying to steal my boyfriend, who is apparently my possession, for you to steal? Up until that point, I never saw myself capable of something like that, because I was really strongly believing in monogamy. A beautiful connection evolved from that moment on with me and Manoy. But it was very clear to us that there was a very strong connection there, and a lot of love, a lot of mutual love. And at some point it was just undeniable that it felt like something that it felt to us that the word friendship didn't do justice to what was there, to the love and the connection that was there. Yeah, so now I'm in this V that I described earlier on with both of them, with Manoy and Matthijs. If you would have told me about this when I started my relationship with Matthijs 6 years ago, I would have never believed you. And I think part of that is because I was super insecure at the time. So even the thought of being open, like being not monogamous, I was always afraid that I would lose my partners, that I would lose Matthijs, and that he would find someone else who was more attractive or more handsome or sexier than me. Throughout this whole process, I really learned to let go. So to let go of the rules, let go of the walls that I had built up around my partners that sort of imprisoned them, I guess. Just letting go and trusting the process and trusting the relationship and trusting myself. Yeah, that has been a beautiful process for me, with a lot of self-discovery and a lot of love. Yeah, so right now I'm at a really relaxed place with the three of us. We went on our first holiday together last summer, which was very nice. Yeah, all three of us are just very free to live our lives and to date if we want to date, and to meet new people, and all these trust issues that I used to have, and all these sort of attachment issues where I wanted to sort of claim my partners and hold on to them as if they were my own possession. If I look at my situation right now, all of that is far behind me.
Thank you, dear listeners and viewers, for being with us, for watching this. As always, the links for this topic will be in the podcast description. This podcast was made in partnership with the European Forum of LGBT Christian Groups. Subscribe, like, comment. Of course, I would encourage you to be respectful. And just suggest this podcast to other people, that they listen to it, that people that might find this helpful.